All right, what's up, everybody? I have a special guest. I have Kaylee in this video. In this video, she's really going to be talking about her journey through anxiety, which is actually quite amazing. And I asked her if she could come here and share her story so that she could at least, she can give some inspiration and really talk about her journey and really hopefully inspire you guys. So thank you, Kaylee, for joining.
Thanks for having me, Shaan.
So, Kaylee, let's start by how this all started. How long ago did this start?
So my anxiety journey started in January of 2019. And just to preface it a little bit, prior to this, I didn't really have anxiety. I mean, I would say that I was more anxious than the average person. I would, before an exam or before an interview, I would feel anxious. But I think it was pretty normal. In no way was it debilitating. In no way did it impact my life beyond those stressful moments that we all have in life. But in January, what ended up happening, and I remember it so vividly, of course, because of just the experience, but I remember I was at my grandparents' house and I was having dinner, and it was just after New Year's. Christmas break, supposed to be relaxing, good time, but all throughout the dinner, I noticed that my throat, I was having problems swallowing, and it was really bugging me. And I was focusing in on it and getting a little bit scared. But because everyone's around, we're all talking, I wasn't focusing too much on it, but it was there the entire time. And then as we were leaving and we got into the car, and there, in the car, you're alone with your thoughts more, I started focusing in on it more. And as the car ride progressed and we got closer to home, I started getting other sensations. I started getting all in my head. I get weird brain zaps on all different parts of my head. And that freaked me out. And then from that, I realized that my entire face, all my entire jaw went numb. And I remember trying to open my mouth and move my tongue to feel it, and I couldn't feel anything. And then all of my hands started going numb. And I was shaking uncontrollably, and I could see myself shaking, but I couldn't feel it. And in that moment, every single heart and stroke commercial that I've ever seen in my entire life just flashed through my head. And I was terrified. I thought, I'm going to die right now on the spot. What is happening to me? Because I never in my life experienced anything like that and so intense. And my partner was driving at the time, and I think he noticed that something was off with me since dinner when I started getting the throat sensations. But in that moment, I said something's wrong. He looked at me and he saw me shaking, and he felt my hand, and it was just cold, clammy and cold. And he goes, "What's wrong?" And I explained. So I think I scared him too, because he never saw that either. Panic attack it's so different. It's rare, right? And we went right to the hospital instead of going home. And in the hospital, they ran their tests, did every single blood panel possible. I was hooked up to the ECG machine. I did everything, and the doctor came in, and the first thing he said was, "Do you have ever had anxiety before?" And I said, "Yeah, I've had anxiety, but this is not anxiety. What is this?" Right? And he goes, "No, you just had a panic attack." Right? And that calmed me down. So in that moment, I felt better. I said, "Okay, well, tomorrow will go away." And he said, "Follow up with your family doctor, and it's just anxiety." Right? That just anxiety line we always hear when we go to the doctor. So I ended up going home, and it was by this time it was maybe 3 a.m. in the morning, so I was tired, and I felt better because it wasn't a heart attack or a stroke. So I went to bed, hoping that in the morning it'll be gone. It's anxiety, right? It's nothing big. But the next morning, I woke up and I was still feeling off. I was getting these physical symptoms still that I was having the night before, the throat sensations, and I was feeling off. And I remember thinking, it's not anxiety. Why is it still happening to me? And that's when I started focusing in on it, and I started Googling and looking up. And from that day, I experienced severe physical symptoms, really, really bad physical symptoms. Just to describe a few of them. So for me, I had really bad headaches. So from that day of my panic attack, I had headaches for 3 months straight. It was like someone took an elastic band, and not even those thin, stretchy ones, those really thick, hard ones, and just wrapped it around my head. And it was just a pinching feeling across my entire head from morning to night. Severe vision problems. I remember always having a weird pressure in the back of my eye. um, blurry vision, um, tunnel vision, seeing weird stuff in the corner of my eyes that weren't there. And the worst of my vision problems, I would say, was floaters. So whenever I was outside, especially when it was bright, it was as if I was looking through a dirty window. Everything was just speckled and I couldn't see clearly. I had hearing problems. I felt as if everything was super loud. So I was very sensitive to loud noises. And whenever it was quiet, my ears would ring. So especially at nighttime before I went to bed or in the morning when I woke up, just nonstop loud ringing in my ear. I had dizziness all the time. I felt like I was off balance. I had joint pains. I had severe pains in my joints and my fingers. The same throat sensation I was talking about before, where I couldn't swallow. It's like someone was choking me at all times. I felt that 24/7. And chest tightness. So like someone took a resistance band and just had it around my chest, and constantly feel like it was pinching and it was tight. And with that chest tightness, like you can't breathe. So constantly having to take, deep breaths or not getting full inhalation. So, and these symptoms I experience when I'm not, no joke, I experience either all of them or a combination of most of them at all points of the day, 24/7. And I would say intensity wise, an 8 out of 10, with 10 being a panic attack, which I would be getting frequently, I would say a couple times a week throughout this too. So these severe physical sensations, what they ended up doing was sending me down a really deep rabbit hole of health anxiety. And I was constantly hyper aware of how I was feeling, constantly Googling these sensations and symptoms. And because I never knew what anxiety was, I didn't know anxiety could cause these things. And every time I went to my doctor, she would do her tests and just say, oh, just anxiety, but never give me an explanation for why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So for me, I didn't believe it. I thought, how can anxiety do all these things to me? And then that started the cognitive symptoms. And then cognitively, intrusive thoughts nonstop. So constantly thinking about, horrible scenarios, my imminent death that was going to come any day because of how I was feeling, and no one was diagnosing me with whatever it was that I had. Depersonalization, derealization, I had that. When I was lying down or sitting on a couch, I feel like the room was shaking, or the bed or the couch was rocking. And just, I think the worst for me when it came to cognitive was brain fog. I just felt completely off at all times. And for me as a teacher, especially in the classroom, you have to be on all the time, where, you're engaging the students, you're answering questions, you're talking to them, you're correcting their behavior and their silliness, right? And I felt like I couldn't do that anymore, because at all times I just felt like I couldn't focus, that things felt hazy. I felt like my memory wasn't the way it was, and I just felt off at all times. So I was struggling with these symptoms very, very badly. And at this time, I went to my doctor, of course. So right after I had the panic attack in January, I went to my doctor, and essentially she said, it's anxiety, and you have two options. You either go to therapy to figure it out that way, or you go with medication route. And at first, I didn't want to go the medication route. So I would say this was happening in January, February, March, April, May, around these 5 months that it was happening, I was going to therapy. And therapy, I ended up seeing 3 different counselors at this time, who didn't help at all. For them, their approach was, one was trying to psychoanalyze me, trying to figure out what in my life was causing this, or what in my childhood or early on in my life, what caused it, which for me was nothing of significance, right? And then trying to push breathing techniques or meditation on me. And for anyone who's really anxious, that when your anxiety is high, no breathing technique and no amount of meditation will get you to calm down. And I tell the therapist, I say, I can't meditate. When I meditate, I get more anxious. I get more scared, because I'm sitting there trying to focus on breathing, and instead I'm realizing that I can't breathe properly, or that my throat hurts, right? And she'll go, okay, if you can't meditate, then you can, walk and meditate. And I'm like, no, that's not the problem, right? Never addressing, the root of the anxiety, which is what, you always talk about,
Mhm.
right? And I'll mention in a moment when I get to what
No worries.
what solved it. And another therapist too, she was pushing what she called radical acceptance, and
Mhm.
which is very, very similar to what you talk about, and what I contribute to my success and my ability to recover too. But at the time, I would go to her and say, I'm having all these physical symptoms, and she'd be like, yeah, it's okay, radically accept it, just accept it, right? And she would be like, anxiety, you might have it your entire life, it's okay, accept it. And here it was at 24 years old saying, radically accept it. I feel like crap 24/7. How can I accept that I'm going to be like this my entire life, right? Or however long that I may have this.
Mhm.
And the therapist too at the time, whenever I'd ask if I can recover, for example, they'd always never give me a straight answer. They'd always say, recovery, it may or may not happen, or they'd avoid the question. And that really discouraged me, because the therapy and therapists paired with, online and YouTube, there's not many success stories out there.
Mhm.
So I felt really discouraged. And I remember, so it was about around end of April, beginning of May, and I'd probably run to the doctor 20 times in these 5 months, either my family doctor, or I'd go to walk-in clinics
Mhm.
where I would go and see a random doctor and see if
Right
they would
on.
find something the person missed, or my family doctor wasn't diagnosed with, or I was going to specialist, and they'd all come back with the same thing. Um, so it was like end of April, beginning of May now, and anxiety had really, it's been 5 months of me struggling, not getting better, all of these physical symptoms and all these cognitive symptoms. And it was really taking a toll on my life. I felt like, for one, I couldn't drive anymore. So I had my first panic attack in the car, and now anytime I got into the car, I couldn't do it. So I was very lucky that at the time my work was 5 minutes away. So the only time I would ever drive was 5 minutes to get to work and 5 minutes to get back. And when it was warm, I would walk just to avoid driving. Right. And for me, driving was very symbolic of my independence, right? Being able to go where I want, go to work, go do my errands. My family, we always go on road trips. So we're always driving down to the States, to New York, Florida, Chicago, Detroit. We always travel. I have family all over the GTA where we go and visit all the time. And I couldn't do that anymore. And I felt, so upset because I don't have problems driving. Driving was fine. I'm a great driver. So why now can I not drive anymore? I was lethargic all the time. I had no energy. I felt drained. I think everyone in my life noticed how my personality just changed. I wasn't myself. I'm a very happy, person, and I did a complete 180. And all I wanted to do was be at home. So when I would go out with my friends or my family, I would be sitting there thinking about my symptoms and how crappy I was feeling and how bad I just wanted to go home. So I really just wasn't myself anymore. And the end of April, beginning of May, I remember I was at work, and it was just a horrible day. My symptoms were so bad. I was so fed up. My doctors weren't helping me. My therapists weren't helping me. At this point, I'd seen 3 of them, and they all had the same techniques that weren't working. So I stopped going to them because they're so expensive too, and I wasn't getting my worth out of it. So I stopped going, and I remember being at work, and I was so fed up and frustrated. I hit my rock bottom, and lunchtime came around, and I remember sitting in my office at school with my 2 coworkers who are my really good friends, and I just broke down crying, saying, I can't handle this anymore. I can't do this. No, I'm not myself. I lost my life. There's no way out. Like, what do I do? And for them, who they don't have anxiety, they don't know what I'm going through, and from their own knowledge, the first thing they said was maybe medication then is your option. So the next day I went to my family doctor, and I got the medication, and she scared me because the first thing she said was, when it comes to anxiety, the medication, the first month, it gets way worse. It's going to get way worse, and then it's going to kick in and it's going to get better. And for someone who was already really struggling with the physical symptoms and who had health anxiety to begin with, that scared me already. Right. And then as I was doing the 5 months, I went home and I Googled the medication, which for people with anxiety. We do it all the time, right? To see what our symptoms are. And when I Googled it, of course, you hear all the horror stories, right? Everyone on there talking about side effects, um, how it made their symptoms worse, um, and all kinds of horror stories. So from reading that, being in the situation where I was in with my anxiety, I said, okay, I'm not taking this either. And that's when I said, I'm at this point, I'm at rock bottom, but there has to be a way out, right? I'm not going to give up just yet. I'm going to try my best until I can't no more, and then maybe I'll go on medication. But I have to try first. And that's when I started really looking online, looking on YouTube, trying to find different strategies and scenarios, and all kinds of things, right? You see CBD oil, you see yoga. Nutritionists will tell you that it's in your gut, and gluten's the root of all evil. So cut out gluten and cut out dairy. And I would try all these different things, and nothing would work. I even went to a naturopath, and I ended up taking all these different tinctures she made me and supplements to try me feel better. And don't get me wrong, they're great supplements, and even to this day, I still take my supplements, but not for my anxiety, just for my general health, right? But at the time, I was here thinking that if I took these things, my anxiety would go away, and it didn't. And that's when I started reading, and I was trying to find as many books I possibly could about anxiety to see if in books there was an answer. Because online, not much was helping me. YouTube, not much was helping me. So I went online looking for books, and I read a few, and they were okay, but they didn't really do much for me. And then I remember in June, I was on Amazon, and I was looking for my next anxiety read. And I ended up stumbling upon a book by Dr. Claire Weeks, Hope and Help for Your Nerves. And this book, at the time, I think went on it recently, and it has over 700 positive reviews now. At the time, it had a lot as well. I remember reading comments like, "This book saved my life." So I said, "Okay, this sounds promising. Let me try it." Yeah. And I got the book, and I remember reading the first chapter, and I just cried. I have it here, the book.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a scary part.
And it's all dog tags, all the pages that I was dog tagging. If you look inside of it, it's underlined all of the stuff that I was underlining. Yeah. But this book, I think now I'm one of the comments too, saying this book saved my life. Cause I read the first chapter, and for the first time in 6 months, someone was describing exactly what I was going through. Something that no therapist, no doctor explained to me, or nowhere online did I see this. And she explained, and what I love is that she starts off with explaining our nervous system, right? What's happening in our body. And immediately, from reading that, it was like a building was lifted off my shoulder. Because at this point, I'd gone to the doctor 20 plus times, and I had no idea what was happening to me. And here she was, explaining exactly what was happening to me. And for me, hearing that, it was as if in this moment, I had to accept that it was anxiety. I still had that what if thinking as you do with anxiety, because anxiety really messes with your nerves, and you've been thinking like that for a really long time. So you're still unsure. But I told myself that, I had to give it a shot. I have nothing else to lose. I've tried everything. So let me just give it a shot. And, from that day, my recovery really started. So.
That's amazing, man. What an amazing story. Like, did you remember the date of your exact panic attack? Do you remember the exact date?
I think it was January 3rd.
Yeah. I think mine was February 7th.
Wow. Yeah.
Remember our dates, right? Yeah. It's such a similar story, because I was in Canada at the time too. And I remember I went to, I just started going to walk-in clinics. I think I went to 5 of them in one day. And I think one of the specialists I went to was an ENT, because I was having vertigo issues, because I was having so many panic attacks, that I went to an ENT, and she was like, "I can't get you in." And I was like literally begging her. I was like, "Can you please, I don't know what's wrong with me." And she felt so bad. I don't know how she squeezed me in. And the doctor, just 2 minutes, and he was like, "Nope, you're fine." And no explanation. Was there a symptom,
Yeah.
like one specific symptom that was really, really debilitating? I know you had quite a few. All of us do. Was there one that really threw you off?
No, I would say I would say all of them really threw me off, and depending on which one I was focusing in on that day on,
Mhm.
that one bugged me the most. And I pick one or two to focus in on and worry about and stress about and Google about,
Mhm.
and then I pick something else to worry about.
Yeah.
But I would say um, probably the worst ones were the headaches because it was just constant pinching in your head, and that was is so uncomfortable. Anyone with headaches, even without anxiety, headaches suck, right? So that was pretty bad. And I would say the vision problems. And it sucks too. And they were really hard because you can't just forget about it. It's constantly there and you're constantly aware of it because it's your vision or it's your head, right? So those really bugged me.
Yeah.
Um, I know you mentioned that for you, digestion was your worst symptom,
Yeah,
right?
I was so nauseous. Oh my god, I lost so much weight. Yeah, yeah. For some reason, the nausea really hit me, and kind of like what you say, like I had just convinced. I had an array of symptoms, but it was the nausea that convinced me. No, this may be a gut issue. And I love how you said, like, like you were trying to like cut out gluten and cut out dairy, because like I went really extreme. What was really interesting, I read somewhere that going vegan would make your anxiety go away, so I went vegan, and that didn't work. And then I was like, why isn't this working? And then I realized, I didn't realize, I read somewhere, oh, no, 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 you have to go raw vegan. So I literally went raw vegan, which was like literally, I was probably eating like 15 bananas a day. Like it had to be raw. It had to be like fruits or veggies. Like it was so bad. And my weight was just plummeting during this time.
Yeah, of
And I still
course.
wasn't feeling better. And then I read somewhere, don't, anyone listening, do not do any of these things. I read going on like a 6-day fast would do it. So I just kept going more and more and more extreme. And all this time, this was happening. Like I was doing everything to stop the anxiety. I was doing whatever I could. If it was like a fast for 6 days, I would have been like, okay, I'm doing it. I don't care. I was that desperate. And like, someone who's gone through it, like you want to do anything to make this go away. Anything.
Yeah,
And it
sure.
does feel like a life sentence. It was insane. So tell me, okay, so you found the book. That's
Yeah.
when the recovery started. What happened? What happened moving forward?
So when I found the book and I read it in probably a day, a night. As soon as I got it and I read it, I couldn't put it down because it was so amazing. Someone was talking about what I was going through, and first person saying that recovery is possible. And at this point, my nerves were still very sensitized. I was still having really bad intrusive thoughts around my health and my anxiety. But I told myself, I have to just give it a chance. I'm at rock bottom. I'm nothing to lose. Let me just give it a chance. And already, just by her explaining the the physiology of panic attack and about anxiety and how it works with our nervous system, my health anxiety went from up here to down here. And that made me feel better instantaneously. And at first, along the symptoms, I would say it got harder before it got better because allowing it, you're no longer resisting it anymore. So it's all coming at you. I remember thinking it was very hard. I was constantly checking, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Am I really accepting? Right. And slowly I gave it a chance and I found within a week, my symptoms, they weren't, phenomenally better, but they were a little bit better. And that was enough to give me that hope that, this strategy is really working, right? Here's my answer. And between, I would say, if I read the book in June to September, I was getting better every week. So how it happened for me was I was having these symptoms at 8 out of 10, and then it started going down to a 7, then a 6. I was still having it every day, but the intensity wasn't as much. And then as it got to about a 6 or a 5, some of the really intense ones started going away and not bugging me anymore. And I was able to get down to maybe, just a handful of symptoms. All the panic attacks were gone by this point, and a lot of the major cognitive ones were gone, but the physical ones were still there for me. And by September, October, November-ish, I found that I plateaued. So from June until then, I was getting better. slowly and have setbacks as normal, but I was getting better overall in that time frame. And then I found that I kind of plateaued it where I was getting symptoms every day still, but at a 4 or 5. And this made me question. I think about, no, am I doing something wrong? And like, why isn't it going away anymore? I really started thinking about it. And that's when I decided to, maybe try the therapy route again. But why I did therapy route was I ended up finding a counselor in Ontario, where he had anxiety himself in his 20s, and he'd overcome it. And then he ended up becoming a clinical, I guess he's a counselor because he has a master's in counseling psychology, and dedicated the past 25 years to only help people with anxiety disorders. So I found him and I thought, other therapists weren't helping me. And advice for everyone out there: if you are going to go to therapy or coaching or, trying to get professional help route, 2 things I recommend. One, the person who overcame anxiety themselves is key, because anxiety, if you read it in a textbook, it's not anything like what we're experiencing, or what you're experiencing, right? So to really understand it, the person should have gone through it themselves. And the second thing is they should specialize in it. If they're doing depression, anxiety, trauma, all these different things, likely that they're doing a one-size-fits-all approach to helping you. So really find someone who specializes in anxiety to help you. So I ended up finding someone like that. And he really helped me get over that last little hurdle. And what he showed me, and what I think the hardest part of accepting is, it sounds really easy, right? Just accept it and anxiety will, it will go. But acceptance is really hard. And for me, I was accepting it in the sense where, yeah, I accepted that I don't have a medical issue, that's just anxiety, but I was not accepting my symptoms. I was still, every morning, and also the day actually, at all times, I was checking with my body. Okay, is my heart hurting today? Is my throat hurting today? Is my head hurting today? And when they were there, I would get frustrated or upset. I would think, okay, why are these symptoms here when yesterday that I was good? Why is it happening again to me? And I also found that I was trying to put a timeline on my recovery. I was saying, okay, by November, it should be gone. By December, it should be gone. And what's that doing is it's actually adding that extra pressure and that extra stress on your body, and you're not truly accepting it. You're passively or half-heartedly accepting it. And the counselor that I worked with, he showed me that. And for him, he just helped me with a little bit more CBT strategies of how to, really get rid of those thinking and those thoughts. And he really helped me understand. For me, understanding my anxiety was really crucial in me overcoming it. So he would tell me all kinds of cool facts about anxiety and how it works, and really demystified it for me. And then when I would have setbacks, he would really help me, because setbacks are hard, right? You've made all this progress, and a setback will come, and it feels like you're back at square one, right? And he would really help me through setbacks. And once I started working with him, the progress started happening again. Until up until the new year and this year, where today I've been anxiety free, physical symptom free, for I wouldn't say a long time, but at least a month, right? Which is great, because when I started working with him, it was no longer where every day I had symptoms. Then it became where I had 1 day break in the week. Then I would have 2 days break in the week. Then I have a 3-day break in the week. And then it started getting longer and longer and longer, my breaks, and my good days outweighed my bad days. To the point where I am today, where it's been good for quite a while, right? So that's essentially where I went after I read the book to where I am today.
That's incredible. That's so amazing. It's like, I feel like we've known each other, because it's like some of the things you're saying, I'm just like, it's perfect. And like, I can't help but smile, because you're exactly right. That's kind of like the recovery journey. So many people don't even know how the recovery journey is like. They literally, sometimes I hear people say, is it just like one morning it's just gone? You just wake up and it's gone, and it's like, it doesn't work that way. Or sometimes they feel like it's linear, where every day just gets significantly better. But it's exactly how you just described it. Exactly. And the thing is that even when it gets really good, I always used to think I was recovered, and then there would be elements where I'd actually have even better days. And I was like, this is incredible. It just kept getting better and better. And that is absolutely amazing. So how did you find my stuff?
So when I found Claire Week's book in June, I'd stopped going on Google and YouTube.
Mhm.
I found that everything that was on Google or YouTube was, all different conflicting things, all different random things to try. Funny thing you were talking about, going vegan, right? I remember if you go on Google and you type in success stories, like anxiety success stories, one of the like, if you go on top hits, you'll see all kinds of random random suggestions. I remember one of them was some guy saying how he did some neural spinal chiropractic to overcome his anxiety. I remember at the time I was Googling it. Like, we're in Toronto. Can I find this chiropractic, right? And it was only in the States. So I was thinking, can I go to the States? Can I go try it? So it was just, once I read Claire Week's book, I realized that this was all BS. Nothing in this matters. So I'd stopped going on YouTube. I stopped going on Google. I just stopped it completely. So it was actually kind of by fluke that I ran into your video, because in February, I would say, your video popped up on my recommended feed on YouTube. And I guess from back when I was always Googling my anxiety, they were still recommending me anxiety videos. And I saw your video and I said, okay, I'm recovered now, or pretty much recovered at this point. I was almost at the end. I was getting very, very few symptoms still. Let me see what he has to say, right? Let me see what he's promoting about anxiety. And I remember watching your video and I had a big smile on my face. I was so happy because I'd spent those 6 months from January to June finding nothing that helped me. And for the first time, I'd found a video and someone who was actually speaking about what I did to recover. And I remember going on looking at some of your other stories and your story, and it was so similar to mine. And through this time, because I wasn't really on Google, I wasn't on forums, I didn't really see other people who had it, I really thought I was still alone in this. Like, I knew that anxiety was common and that I wasn't alone because, Claire Weeks talks about it in her book, but I never really saw anybody else who had what I went through. And your story, like you mentioned, is very similar to mine. There's similar elements,
Yeah.
right? And I thought, wow, here's someone who went through what I went through. And wow, he's online and he's speaking the truth. And I was so happy about it because I thought, I struggled for so long because I wasn't getting the right information. So now people who might come across your video, they're going to get that information. And you had your Facebook group, and I ended up joining your Facebook group to see as well, like, what is he doing on the Facebook group to help people? And I just saw at the time, I think of 1,000 people, just a vibrant community of people who were going through what I went through a year ago. And, you and others actively trying to help them. And I said, I'm not going to become an anxiety coach, but I can try my best on this Facebook group to help people as well, because I know how much it would have meant to me. And that's really how I came across your work and your channel.
Yeah,
So,
and for the viewers watching this, that's actually how we met. She gave some feedback that I read all the comments. I do. I don't message all. I don't respond. But I saw hers, and I was like, that's good. And I was like, man, she knows what she's saying. And I just direct messaged her, and I was like, hey, thanks for your contribution. And you said, hey, yeah, thank you. And and then I asked to have a chat and just wanted to hear your story. And I was like, this is incredible. And that's why we kind of started this. That's why we're creating this video for YouTube. Okay, so what would you tell Kaylee? What would you tell somebody right now who is struggling, who feels like this is a life sentence, that no matter what they've tried, they haven't been able to get help? What would you tell that individual right now?
so there's three things I would tell that person. The first thing is to trust the process. So I know if you're struggling, by this point, you've probably seen all kinds of different opinions on how to get better and ways to improve your anxiety, get rid of your anxiety. But, I'm telling you, and from Shaan's story, he's telling you, and from Claire Weeks and her experience, and so many others who have followed a very similar approach to overcoming anxiety. So the DARE approach, for example, is another author. He wrote Badass Ways to End Panic and Anxiety. I forget
I
his
don't know how
name.
to say his name, but yeah, I know.
Neither.
Here,
But
I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I read his book. His book, very similar approach.
Uh-huh.
Dr. David Carbonell, he has 2 really good books. I know you've mentioned his Panic Workbook, but I've actually read his 2 other books.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay. Yeah.
I forget what they're called, but I mean, he has an anxiety clinic in Chicago, so
Yes.
he knows his stuff, right? And Shaan's approach, all of these anxiety, people overcome it. We've all used this approach, and it's worked,
Yeah.
right? So, and it sounds very counterintuitive at first, and it's very hard because essentially there's no more coping, there's no more getting rid of it. You're doing the opposite, but trust the process, right? Really trust that that it is possible to overcome it, and that this process works. And in that as well too, I would say really trust that your body can, will, and wants to heal, right? Recovery is possible. And many people think that our body is broken. It's working against us, something wrong with us. But it's actually the opposite. Our body's working for us, right? It's doing it in a bizarre way. It's misfiring because we're, our thoughts and our behaviors are telling it that there's a threat, but our body's working, and it's working for us, right? And it can, will, and wants to heal. You just have to follow the process, and you will get there. The other thing I would say is patience. You're not going to wake up, like you mentioned, you're not going to wake up the next day and it's going to be cured. Anxiety is not cured in days. It's not cured in weeks. It's cured in months, if not several months. And even then, everyone's body is different, right? Depending on your situation or your circumstances or your symptoms, whatever it may be, just your body. Recovery happens in its own time. So you really, really have to be patient with recovery, because it's not going to come right away. And you can see with my story, it took me a while to get to that point, and many others as well too. It takes time. And there's actually some really cool science behind recovery and why it takes as long as it does. So I think you mentioned before, and Claire was mentioned in her book, that they're are sensitized, right? So naturally, because we're in this state, things that wouldn't normally set us off, right? So we're going to be activating that response as we're recovering, right? And that's natural, and it's going to happen, but it does delay it a little bit, right? So your goal is to try and not activate it as much as you can, but it's going to happen. The other thing about it too that I was reading about was fear-based learning and fear-based memory. So whenever we activate the fight or fight response, our amygdala, which is the fear-based part of our brain that is responsible for all these lovely anxiety symptoms, remembers it. So for me, for example, when I had that panic attack in the car, my brain remembered that. And even though the next day I wasn't scared of the car, once I got in the car, my body acted as if there's a threat there, because my amygdala said, okay, Kaylee, last time she was in the car, she had a really bad panic attack and got really scared and something bad happened. So there must be a threat there. So I'm going to try and protect her. And in the car, whenever she's in one, I'm going to activate it to try and, get her ready to fight or flight, whatever it is that she has to deal with. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, you don't understand anxiety, you reinforce that fear. So every time you get in the car, wherever your symptoms are being activated for what appears like no reason, you're reinforcing that, right? And because our brain and our body is trying to protect us, it actually takes a long time for your amygdala to let go of that fear. Mm-hmm. And they found with mice, for example, doing studies on mice, when they paired a fear response with a stimulus with the mice, it took them 3 times as long to unlearn the fear response than it took them to get it. And when it comes to anxiety, they find the same thing. It takes us, quite some time to unlearn those fear responses that we've associated with various things in our life. So even for me in my recovery, driving, it was horrible. Up until even a month ago, I still got anxiety and panic whenever I was in the car. And even though the rational part of my brain was saying nothing's wrong, I've accepted it, I'm okay, the amygdala was like, nope, for 6 months, she was, there's a problem in the car. There's a threat there. So I'm going to go inside of caution and still try and save her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why acceptance is so important, because you're showing your body and your brain that in a situation, there's no threat there, right? You're deconditioning that. So that takes a while. And the other thing too that I was reading about that was so cool was just the effects of anxiety on the different hormones in our body. So we know that adrenaline and noradrenaline are a part of it, or epinephrine, norepinephrine, whatever you call it, where you're from, and cortisol, right? And what my counselor was explaining to me at the time, and what I was reading about, was that prolonged stress, cortisol is actually the main culprit in a lot of our anxiety symptoms. And naturally, we all have cortisol. So in the morning, our cortisol levels go up to wake us up. And then throughout the day, it goes down. And whenever we eat, because food spikes our blood sugar levels, so it goes up a little bit. And then it kind of tapers off towards the end of the day before we sleep.
Yeah.
But when we're anxious, we're spiking cortisol all throughout the day. And our body wants to maintain homeostasis. So our body mimics the levels from the previous day. So when a person who's not anxious, they're ending the day off like down here. When you're anxious, you're ending off up here. So the next day, you're starting off up there, and the levels are appropriate to what it was the previous day. Mm-hmm. And I have really good graphics on it. I'll share it with you after some other time.
I'd love to.
For someone who's anxious, no person is starting out down here in the day, and anxious is starting out up here, and their levels are up there. So your body has to get back down to normal levels, and that doesn't happen overnight. That happens through, acceptance, allowance, not activating the stress response that leads to activating, and just, via relaxing and activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but all these different factors play such an important role in why it takes such a long time to recover. And understanding that really allowed me to accept that recovery was going to be a while, and to stop stressing about it, which is why I'm sharing that. Yeah. So be patient, because it takes time, and anxiety is not in your head. It's something physiologically happening to your body, and it takes time to heal. The same way a broken leg might take time to heal, right? You just have to do the right steps, and eventually it will go away. And the last thing I would say is just perseverance, because already I'm going to say that if you're watching this video, you're a very strong person, because anxiety is debilitating, it is scary, it's uncomfortable, and just the fact that you're still waking up every day and doing what you have to do, and watching these videos to try and get better, you're a very strong person, and don't let that go. Keep with that strength and perseverance, because anxiety and recovery is going to test you. There's going to be bad days, really bad days, and there's going to be good days. But your success really does lie in how well you handle those bad days. So when you have a setback, that's when you really show your body that, I'm okay. You're activating this response when you're not supposed to be activating it. I'm safe and I'm okay. And you'll find that, you'll go back to those good days. And as you faithfully practice those things, you trust in your body, the process, and you're patient, recovery is imminent. It's there. You just have to, it takes time and perseverance. And that's what my advice I would give.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, amazing. I'm so happy with the progress you've made. And I see success stories, but every time I hear one, it hits me, because it's like, for me, recovery is one of those things where, one of the things I noticed when I was struggling is that as I got better, I noticed I became very sensitive to other people struggling. That's probably why I do what I do too. But like, when I hear stories, when I see their journey, when I see the progress, it's just, it's so incredible.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was the same for you, but once I got to where I was, I felt, I wouldn't say angry, but I was upset that, the healthcare professionals that I went to at the time, something so simple, they weren't able to do it. Yeah. And I felt as if someone just from the get-go just explained, the anxiety fear cycle to me, mm-hmm. I would have been able to help myself a bit more and not get as deep as I did.
Mhm.
um, and just online to all this information.
I know.
So, thank you so much for what you do. And, like I mentioned, I saw your videos and I was so happy that, people out there are getting accurate, good information, especially on YouTube, because I know, reading books for some people is not, they don't like doing it, right? YouTube is where people go to for information.
Yeah.
So to have this channel to share that, and even your Facebook group, which is why, I'm trying my best to comment and respond and help people as best as I can as well too. You do want to give back. You do want to help because you see, like we see that recovery is possible. It's there, but it's hard and you need the right guidance. And once you get that guidance via whatever route, right, um, you can get better and it is possible. So
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this. I really appreciate that, really. Yeah, because that's always been the goal. It's to get people to get back on their feet and then they become their own guide. They just become their own. I always say, I think actually Claire Weeks says it, but I say it a lot, but I stole it from Claire Weeks, which is it feels like a crutch right now, but it really does become your staff of wisdom. And
yeah,
that's what it ends up becoming. And what I have found is because this happened to me a few years ago, I have found that it has made me a better person, and it has allowed me to keep going when other people would give up. Because you just build this tolerance, and plus you've also dealt with anxiety, and if you can get through anxiety, it's weird. Life kind of becomes a playground. And for you, this is kind of a new process for you, but I'm telling you, it's kind of an unfair advantage moving forward because you're just there's going to be there's a lot of things I know you've learned about yourself, and now you have this awareness now that when you understand how anxiety works and you look at the world and you see other people do it, you can't it's almost like you can't unsee it, and you just see it, and you avoid doing those things, so you just keep going when other people give up. um, and so I found I can handle stress better. I'm happier. um, it's the small things that matter to me, not like the massive big stuff. And um, it's weird. It's kind of it's a blessing, and while you're in it, it's so terrible. And you're right. It's kind of like you feel like you're. I used to tell my parents this that like I felt like it was almost like as if I was in a car wreck. I got T-boned, and everyone else was just driving around and there was nothing. They were like, sorry, I can't do anything. Like, and I just felt like somebody helped me. And like, it just felt like I was, no matter where I went, they just made sure there wasn't anything physically wrong. They didn't tell me what was going on. And then they just like kicked me out. And I just felt like it was like that. And yeah, that's the goal of the channel, to, realize it's not a life sentence, that you can come back. In fact, it's you can come back actually stronger. And I never thought this could happen. When I was struggling, there was so much misinformation. I never thought full recovery was possible. I just didn't think it. And so if you would have asked me what would have been my ideal goal, which would be A, fully recover if that's even possible, B, if I could help others do the same. And that felt so far for where I was. Because from someone who had lost like, I think I lost like 45 pounds or 40 pounds or something like that, I was housebound. I couldn't even leave the house. If I looked out the window, I'd get a panic attack. To be like, oh yeah, like I want to travel the world and get out of this, be happy, and maybe even help others. And all those things I didn't think was going to happen. And so when people are saying, the person I used to be and the person I am now seems so far, I know it feels like that, but literally you're in such a position to win. You really are. If you just focus on the right things and stay consistent and ideally have that right guide. I mean, it's in a weird way, the internet has made misinformation kind of prevalent, but in a great way, I think we've also kind of leveraged the internet, which is now I think it's also the best time to recover, because we're trying to disseminate good information ideally. Um,
what I'm scared about though, and what I think the biggest problem with anxiety is misinformation,
yeah.
is that now that I've recovered and you've recovered, you
Mhm.
can very easily see the BS
Yeah.
online and the good stuff. But I know that when I was struggling, I had no idea, and that's the hard part. Really getting people to the right information.
Exactly. Because it's always like recovery is like it's secondhand knowledge. You can hear other people recover, But unless you start experiencing recovery on your own, you're absolutely right. I have like this whole philosophy of why that kind of happens too. I feel like we're kind of in a consumer culture where the idea is to sell something. And here we are saying you don't need anything. We offer guidance, but the goal is not to rely on anyone, including ourselves. And that's a very weird model to, to do. And that wasn't a model that you could do until recently, I would say. So I feel like it wasn't, I felt, looking back, I don't look at it as anyone like there was any like ill intent. I just felt like for some reason it didn't feel like it was in anyone's best interest to get us
Yeah.
to recover, which was really sad. And I still till this day get so impressed by how incredible the people are and how amazing they are, and how incredible individuals they are. And for them to fall into this, because for a long time I thought maybe I fell into this because I just, maybe there was character flaws in me, or maybe there was something weird about me that made me fall in. But as I've seen so many people, I've seen some of the most amazing people, you included. Like I hear you talk, I see you guys, and I'm like, man, like that's one thing that doesn't seem to get old. I meet incredible individuals in all different domains of life doing amazing things. And all that really happened was they just got tricked. That was all that happened. And once they just come out of that trick, it's chapter closed. Go on living your life. Anxiety was something you struggled with, and then you just pick up the lessons and just go. And life becomes better in a weird way. And so
I think it's people who are really smart and creative and analytical who get trapped because they take their thoughts. They don't know how it works, first of all, and then they run wild with their thoughts.
That's true.
And that's what end up getting into the anxiety cycle. So it's really people, like you said, they're amazing, smart, hardworking, goal-driven, great people. And unfortunately, because not much is known about mental health, there's so much stigma around it. Anxiety isn't included, right? We hear it thrown around all the time. I'm anxious. I'm anxious. I'm anxious. But the anxiety that people talk about is not the anxiety that we went through, and what people watching this video and people in your group that they're going through. It's completely different, and it's very physiological. It's not in your head. You're actually experiencing these things, and it's horrible. And I think doctors are still not there yet as well. Like family doctors, like I'm so upset at my family doctor a little bit for how she handled it, because she could have handled it a lot better, and she was very dismissive. Like your analogy of the car wreck and people just going around you and not helping you. And even some, professionals who are mental health professionals, and they don't understand as well too. And it's not their fault. They just haven't gone through it, or they haven't, come across it in that manner, right? Really, unless you've gone through it, you don't know.
I know, and what's amazing? We've had doctors in the program. Like we've had mental health we have counselors in the program. So it's like even they're not immune. Even when that happens to them, they get floored. Even though they understand the nervous system, they get it. Like we had a doctor, and I was explaining it, and he was like, "Dude, I understand this. This is happening." And even he got floored. Even he got confused. So it's like I say, like I feel like the people that are the most safe are the ones that have gone through it and came out. I feel like I have this belief that they'll never fall back in. They just won't. I find it's the people that haven't gone through this. That's amazing. Any last words that you want to share?
Just keep going. You're strong. You're amazing, and recovery is possible. You just, once you find the right steps, it's there, and to just not give up hope. And thank you, Shaan, so much for having me and for having me able to share my story. I hope that my story will help someone, that you can relate, that you can see the steps that I took, the mistakes that I made, and hopefully get out of this sooner than I did, or not go through as long as I did. Because there is help and the good stuff out there. Just you have to find it. And if you're on this video, I think you already found it. So just good luck.
Thank you so much, Kaylee, for joining. For those that are interested, I'll put a link down below to the private Facebook group. If you do want to join the private Facebook group, hit join. It's going to ask you 3 questions. It's really important that you answer those 3 questions. Kaylee knows this. I know this, that sometimes Facebook groups or any forums can get kind of toxic. We're trying to maintain the integrity of the group. We're really trying to give guidance on people that are serious about fully overcoming. This isn't a forum about coping or managing or just going on there when you have high anxiety. This really takes you by the hand and helps you recover. And there's plenty of people that have recovered, that are getting better, Kaylee included, myself, that are in that group that are trying to give guidance as much as possible. So if that's you, hit the link down below and I'll see you inside. Kaylee, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Sean.